Tough guys busting the bad guys. This seems to be the formula in Arizona law. Tough guys in armed drills in schools, with plenty of shooting and muscle attitude. Tough guys on checkpoints, sealing Latino neighborhoods. In both drills, we can see Steven Seagal, a Hollywood tough guy, being part of the action. The problem is that those so-called bad guys, roughed up by this militarized police and voluntary force, are not only the criminals, but drug users, drunk drivers, fathers who are behind on child support, people indicted in civil claims, and even juveniles.
This was the scene in Laveen 2 weeks ago. Armored vehicles, a SWAT team, riot gear, all part of a raid on an alleged cockfighting ring. And right there with the sheriff, actor Steven Seagal shooting scenes for his reality show.
To many journalists, lawyers, and activists' opinions, Sheriff Arpaio is perhaps the best embodiment of the implementation of a political and even personal agenda using the almost all-powerful police powers and capabilities in post-9/11 US. Whether the hard style of law enforcement is characteristic of a lone sheriff, or rather a characteristic of a system, is still to be determined. Sheriff Joe Arpaio has his own little Praetorian Guard, a posse of armed volunteers, 3,450 strong, working in conjunction with sworn deputies.
I'm very angry about detractors. I don't think we have to worry about our posse. They've been around for years at the malls and everything else. We haven't had any incident. I don't know what these protesters are talking about.
An investigative project by CBS 5 uncovered that
a number of POSI members with arrests for assault, drug possession, domestic violence, sex crimes against children, disorderly conduct, impersonating an officer, and the list goes on. These are crimes that are not tolerated in many professions, especially professions with an implied authority.
I want everybody to know that we're going to be around those schools. And if you do something, we will be armed, and we're going into the schools.
Not only Arpaio and Seagal had been armed in an Arizona school as of late. A false rumor of a gun put 3 different schools into lockdown and turned every child into a suspect. After 4 hours of an Orwellian lockdown, no gun was found. Many analysts and journalists suggest that beyond the tough showdown, at every opportunity, the police work is not being done. A story by the New York Times notes that
though known for his hard-nosed treatment of prisoners and illegal immigrants, Sheriff Arpaio received heavy criticism in early December 2011 for his department's mishandling of past sex crime cases. According to investigations by Arizona law enforcement agencies, Mr. Arpaio's deputies failed to investigate or conduct only the sketchiest of inquiries into more than 400 sex crimes between 2005 and 2007. Many of those cases involved molested children.
Despite the fact that he's being sued by the U.S. Department of Justice in a class action matter for racial profiling, the self-proclaimed America's Tough Sheriff won on November his 6th election with 50.7% of the vote, his smallest margin of victory ever. He immediately announced he will be running again in 2016.
Smile! You're under arrest.
Arpaio likes the spotlight. Some time ago, he had his own TV show. And more recently, he claimed that President Obama's birth certificate was false and sent some of their posse volunteers to Hawaii to investigate. So disputed elections may not be Sheriff Joe's main concern. A federal lawsuit and investigation has been ongoing for some years now, and the sheriff defiantly rejects the proposed settlement of allowing an independent monitor to rein in the unconstitutional tactics used by officers in Maricopa County in Arizona. This is a fragment of the initial findings letter from Tomas Perez, the Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department, to Bill Montgomery, the County Attorney for Maricopa County.
MCSO engages in a pattern or practice of unconstitutional policing. Specifically, we find that MCSO, through the actions of its deputies, supervisory staff, and command staff engages in racial profilings of Latinos, unlawfully stops, detains, and arrests Latinos, and unlawfully retaliates against individuals who complain about or criticize MCSO's policies.
There is also an ongoing criminal investigation into officials at the sheriff's office. In a letter sent to Arpaio's office, the Justice Department said it's moving closer to suing the county and the sheriff's office in federal court in an effort to implement the federal monitor to reign over Arpaio's forces. I spoke with Sheriff Joe about his career and his policies.
All politics. So I'm a politician too, I guess. I get elected. But I do what I feel is right. I don't need this job. I'm 75 years old. I should be retired. But I'm running again. Because when the Hispanic groups and Hispanic elected officials keep going after me because they don't like my policy on arresting illegals, I keep going bigger and bigger, and I'm going to run again. They are not going to drive me out of office. We always got along throughout the years without hiring illegals. And I don't like to say this, but if you go down south, you have a lot of African Americans working, cleaning the hotels, and they're not getting big money, but they're here legally. They survive down there, so why can't we hire people legally?
In the last 20 years of the ongoing war on drugs, a process that Arpaio has conducted since the beginning as a DAA officer, the state prison population has grown tenfold. In June of 1979, it was 3,377 inmates. By 2009, it had increased to more than 40,000. Some even argue that the hardline and anti-immigrant policies are linked to lobby and lawmakers acting in behalf of what's being dubbed as prison industrial complex. Such argument is not very hard to believe, since the United States stands alone as number one in number and percentage of citizens in prison, far ahead of other nations characterized as not being free by the Western media and political pundits. This hardline approach has not made Arizona a safer state. In Arizona, a recall campaign has been launched to force Joe Arpaio out of the office. In an upscale law buffet in Central Phoenix, the campaign was launched. We spoke with some of the sponsors of this effort.
Well, I think the work of Joe Arpaio, in a nutshell, has been atrocious. It's been a hindrance to the people of the state of Arizona. I think that he's done a horrible job. He's caused us a lot of damages.
Sheriff Arpaio is corrupt, he's expensive, he's ineffective, and he's sadistic. He violates constitutional rights. He doesn't follow the rule of law.
This is an idea whose time has definitely come. Joe Arpaio has a horrible record in law enforcement. He has a horrible record as a fiscal manager. And the voters here in Maricopa County overall, I think, just don't really realize he's so good at public relations that they don't realize what he's really about. And so we think forcing one special election that's going to force Joe Arpaio to confront some of these issues.
There have been 7 recall elections since year 2000 to 18 high elected officials. 7 of them have been recalled, being Russell Pierce the only case here in Arizona. The former Senate president went from one of the most powerful men in the state to being recalled out of office in a matter of months, largely due to Latino right activists and student group support. This is the example these lawmakers and activists are trying to follow with this initiative to recall Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Reporting for The Real News, this is Oscar Leon.